Ganges Mahamudra Practice Instruction with His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche. This teaching was recorded live on June 25th and 26th, 2005 in Tucson, Arizona.
Tata the Ganges and the don't dump it demba, don't dump it demba, don't dump it demba the Tom Gona, Gonzogo Sancho, Son Botti, Julia Machina, Tawan and Toya Yomare. Ole. This Haji Gagan and Kangredina. Chamis on the Thomas and Tom, Dick on it. Gonzogo demba, Sancho sent a legend, the Julia Machina, Tom Yomare, Disney. Don't dump with them at Tongona. Sancho sent the Dachabo, didn't from the Lord Dunger, the Lanis of doing the rock. Kang dinner and Saji Gayon to Matanga Yomare. Then they did the wrong and the Nanitri. Put up the Tondam, Nilan dinner at Tongore. The Romatam Jumper, the Lodge, the Yamnichea, the Kichabo Yoret.
Today's teaching will deal with the ultimate truth. And if we wish to see the ultimate truth, yet we have not given rise to loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta in our mind streams, it will not be at all possible to recognize the ultimate truth that is the nature of mind. It is said that we will not see this ultimate nature without having accumulated 3 limitless aeons of virtue. What this means is that we must give rise to the awareness that is the non-dual union of emptiness and compassion in our mind streams in order to recognize the ultimate truth. And that is only done on the basis of accumulation of merit through cultivating bodhicitta. Thus, for the last 7 years, wherever I have gone, I have distributed this book on the 37 practices of the bodhisattvas. This is the complete teachings of all of the Buddhas. None of the Buddha's teachings are not included in this. This text contains the meaning of both conventional and ultimate truths, and so I always encourage my disciples to read and put this text into practice.
And Medaba read, you know, this Haja Chimbu Minga, they know, I didn't like it. Tankashi problem. You know, you might a Jamu Chatan about it in the Javan market. They top of that, Sakwa, Tomo Maim, but Yamda Malam Lasoba, Ranker, top, take on it.
So today, I don't have a voice. So today we will speak about the essential instructions on Mahamudra. All of you students have made offering of the mandala in order to receive this instruction. I myself have received commentary on this a few times, principally from His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche. I have received this teaching on the Mahamudra Upadesha. Of principal importance is that we understand the preciousness of the blessing of the practice lineage. So to the senior students gathered here, I have previously offered a photograph of His Holiness Chetsang Rinpoche For those of you who have not yet received it, I would like to distribute it today. So please take one if you do not already have one. So can I see a show of hands of those who do not have and who need one?
네 사자집을 명아 네나 하장 땡사보 양문의 연디 침보를 개발 천재진들이나 야 책을 왔다면이 근데 사자집에 동네 동근이랑 그 냠서 용네 제일 고지 되는데 하장 까모래 근데 책을 내고는 말에 용대시다 요 말에 근데 다 동그 때문에 랑게 때 하고사고사네들이 로마탐지라 무두체 근데 미시사만 뭐 요래도 미시 신도제 때 시사는 로마탐지는 뭐 랑게 때다 냠용로사네 쇼이지.
So this text, known as the Mahamudra Upadesha, is extremely profound. And many scholars of the past who have given rise to great qualities of scholarship have given commentary on this text. But of greatest importance is to actually directly experience its meaning through personal practice. From my own side, although I'm not a great scholar and I have not given rise to scholarly qualities, I have a slight understanding of the inner meaning of the text, and on the basis of that, I will give an introduction to you. Although there are many aspects of this profound text that I do not understand, still I will try to speak from my limited personal experience.
정말 여갈께도 마하마다 바데샤서 이 배가께도 철전하니 사자침부 명아래 진짜로 사자침보된 저처 망보여야 돼. 이 사자집바데 나타나서 무슨 대박의 사자가 대박의 맹 사자집바데 대박의 맹나 요요 이제는 되니 사집바데 라고 대박의 맹 강한 사자는 랑그 샘들적인 뭐지 내록대 라르 동담자에 사송의 산지 랑그 샘들이 베트라 랑그 샘의 내록대 랑그 대박지와 다 드리그만 뭐 보는 거 요래 동그대나 오 랑그 샘도 산지에 상문이 내록 통곡답이 랑그 이치를 제리요래 동무대와 같이.
The title of this text is, in Sanskrit, Mahamudra Upadesha. In Tibetan, it is Chagya Chenpa Menga. And in English, it is Essential Instructions or Pith Instructions on Mahamudra. In general, although there are many explanations of the term Mahamudra, we can understand the first Tibetan syllable, which is cha. When we say Mahamudra in Sanskrit, in Tibetan it is Chagya Chenpo. So the terms are reversed. It's like Mudra Maha in Tibetan. So the first syllable of Mudra is Cha in Tibetan, or hand. It's the honorific term for hand. It also refers to the offering of prostration. This is speaking about what happens when we give rise to faith. We spontaneously make offering of prostration. So when we recognize the natural state of the mind itself, when we catch a glimpse of the Buddha nature, then we immediately give rise to a kind of faith. We have faith and devotion in the qualities inherent in our own mind stream. We give rise to this innate Buddha nature. This is then the ultimate meaning, or the ultimate commentary on this term cha, or prostration.
제 강는들이 섬낭 샘 동반이디 내lok당 섬낭카가 동반이 네가 네저 롭답 집바라서 요래 강리들은 남편은 느끼 탐비들이 마셔고 요마 빼는들이 셰르 공원디나 다다 지는 참아 적셔들 이 동반이게 들이 마셔고 요 말이 사자 집은 안에 되는 혼자게 주 탐지 이 돈이게 돈라 마셔고 적장 요 말에 야치 뭐
The last three syllables of the Tibetan term Mahamudra are Gyachembo. This means vast. An example of vastness that we often use is space. When we look at the inner mind and we abide in the natural state thereof, we experience empty vastness. That vastness of the inner mind is similar to the vastness of space. Space contains, or space encompasses, all of the container that is this universe and the contents that inhabit it. For example, if we look at a crystal ball, everything that is in the surrounding space is reflected and combined in that crystal ball. If it were not for emptiness, such an appearance could not arise. Likewise, within the empty vastness of mind itself, all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana appear. So if we look at the natural state of the mind, there are many terms that we can apply to this. And sometimes we use the term Mahamudra, sometimes Dzogpa Chenpo, or the Great Perfection. Sometimes we refer to it as the Great Middle Way. In any case, all of these are referring to the same experiential phenomenon. So that the actual text begins with the first line, homage to the glorious co-emergence. Now, when we recognize the natural state of the mind, when we catch a glimpse of mind's nature, then all the phenomena of samsara and nirvana become like companions to us. We become endowed with great power. That great power is what is referred to in this line as glorious. What is glorious? It is the co-emergence. This co-emergence, or Lenchi Gyepa in Tibetan, refers to the Buddha nature itself, the recognition of the inseparability of the mind of all of the Buddhas and of all sentient beings.
가와 주니 같은 주니 제거더니 나로바 가와 주죠 라만나 그바 추가 생각들이 올해 강의를 맞아봐 올해 들이 닝도 발레들이 라만나 그 시랍 요사래지 로다데 막 시랍을 로직 조려 요사래지 되나?
The first verse reads, Intelligent Naropa, forbearing of suffering, you have endured hardships and are devoted to the Guru. Thus, though Mahamudra cannot be shown, take this to heart, you fortunate one. Just as an interpreter's comment, there are countless versions of this Mahamudra Upadesha transmitted in various lineages. The text order is really complicated because if you compare these various versions, not only are the verses mixed up, but also the individual lines of the verses can be mixed. And so what we'll be working from in this teaching is the version that Garchen Rinpoche has received. However, the text order varies greatly from the translation that you've been given. Now back to Rinpoche's commentary. This was a teaching given by Tilopa. And here in the beginning he's saying, although Mahamudra cannot be shown and it cannot be seen as an object, although Mahamudra is beyond any kind of form that is based on particles, still he is pointing to this inner essence, to his disciple Naropa, who for the sake of the Dhamma endured 12 great hardships. So Naropa is referred to as having endured hardships and being devoted to the Guru. Likewise, it is said that he is forbearing of suffering or patient with suffering and endowed with intelligence or transcendent awareness. So it is to this disciple Naropa that Tilopa is offering this instruction.
Lingual, lingual dinner. That got it. Sudden to me, Chimon, that our zut about it. Carry the zut to go it. Saja Chimbo, Dun and Tone, the turn Chimboiva, Ole. Look out saw the kitchen of Maiba. Saja Chimbo, don't the Dutch Chimboiva Tala. Or the 10,000 zut about it. A lot of the Batate. Sharp Chibitate.
So first we must understand that this disciple Naropa proved himself to be a qualified disciple through enduring extreme hardships and great sufferings of heat and cold and so forth. The teachings on Mahamudra, on the nature of mind, are exceedingly meaningful. In this context, the body and the life force are really insignificant. So Naropa's patience and forbearance in the face of various hardships are a sign of his intelligence and his transcendent awareness. The last line reads, "Take this to heart, you fortunate one." So a person who has qualities such as these is indeed fortunate.
얘는 까빠당 대시바데 랑나 로당 메바제 추저 던지로 좋아 젠되게 요거래 올해 대메라 까빠당 마데바 강 투투를 사자지 못해 내가 대 저는 내가 슬레베 로마탄 키로 또 쉐뉴 요바 tettam 제가 양 까빠당 된다래 배나 올해 다다 어찌되어 심지 탐지를 열어봐. 이거는 랑게 로담을 봐가 되네 배나. 냠지 린도 열네 배나. 그 사자집에 동지 개체만 통화돼 까빠나 된 말이에요. They mean Montana, or Churanga, Churanga Pandari, Churanga Jimdari, Chur Sajachimbo Patina, the Yomada, Ranso Capata, Dingo Mato, such a Sunam Chiba, Par Chiba, Sunam Mena, it is Sajachibo Yam, Lindu, Young Barry. They were number one, you do them as your money. Gabi don't matter long to your money. Or they don't Capata Dimaditis, Lepatan, so sometimes to Capata Dimari, Tomaran, so to call Capa Gargon.
So again, in this first verse, Tilopa is referring to Naropa as a fortunate one. And on the basis of his excellent qualities, on the basis of the disciples' excellent qualities, the Guru Tilopa is offering this instruction on Mahamudra to him. We should understand that the Buddhas have love for all sentient beings, like the love a mother has for her only child. And it is with this vast mind of loving kindness for all beings that Tilopa is offering the instruction. Although he's offering it personally and directly to Naropa, it is not being done with the partiality of attachment or fixation to someone who is near and dear. Rather, Tilopa is merely recognizing the great fortune of this qualified student, Naropa, who wishes to engage in the teaching and practice and wishes to receive this profound instruction on the nature of mind. So in the very beginning, he is rejoicing in the qualities of this worthy disciple. Without a great accumulation of merit, it is not possible to engage in the practice of Mahamudra. Without a great accumulation of merit, one will not even be inclined to take the vow of refuge. So when we from our own side see how precious Mahamudra is, and we wish to receive instruction on it, that is a sign that we are endowed with merit and fortune. The next verse begins, "Oh, look well at worldly phenomena. As they cannot last, they are dreamlike and illusory."
Oh, jikti chedi sawa tamki malam ta re samne uni dunge te cho ta samno tangna ti ha ko re ti chilo toba me je jikti chendal chap ga da hinga di wang ge ni chilo me ba da toba me ba shap ti te ge de bro re.
Let me read the entire verse. "Oh, look well at worldly phenomena. As they cannot last, they are dreamlike and illusory. But in actuality, they are not dreams and illusions. For example, when giving rise to disenchantment, you have insight into worldly activities, and you completely sever the connection with attachment and aversion, the domain of samsara. Meditate alone in mountain and forest hermitages." Now, the beginning of this verse points to something that I've said many times, and today I will repeat. First, we need to investigate worldly phenomena well. We need to contemplate karma, cause and effect. We need to think deeply about the sufferings of samsara and so forth. When we contemplate these, then we see that they are illusory and dreamlike. And in this way, our attachment and fixation to the phenomena of this life begin to loosen and become purified. Otherwise, if we hold on with attachment and fixation to worldly phenomena, that fixation itself obscures innate transcendent awareness.
This concludes CD number 1 of Ganges Mahamudra Practice Instruction with His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche.
Malam Juma Karido Pena Tata Chende, Nipalan Hawa, Dembares, oh, the Dembar, the Malam de Jumares, Malam the Samiton Bani, Shigayore Tata Chende, Matikan, the Shaja Malam Tavares, Sunny Shat Sadi, Malam Tav, Lutegi Young, Tawatene Young, the Paton Chambi or the Dore Casacala, or Chende Malam Tavin, just Sadej. Tilopa, ta Nimpalgan now and there, Simo Malam now and you are Tina, the Naro Churula Sopajan, Malam the Jumajama Cavity, take Hakori. Oh, Tata said the Deban now and the Tanguni Julius, Malam Tavaret, said that someone you are Yamdu go at the Hakori.
As phenomena cannot last, they are dreamlike and illusory, it is said in the text. Now, in general, we look at the waking phenomena of this life as being real, and the phenomena of dreams as being false. In actuality, this entire life is like a dream. Although we fixate on it as real in the present, when this life is over and we enter the bardo or the intermediate state, we will recognize all of the experiences of this life to have been like a dream. And so it is with the phenomena of all beings of the 6 realms of existence. So when, for example, we're training in the dream yoga, in the 6 yogas of Naropa, we are really training to intensify our recognition of phenomena as being illusory and dreamlike. So although we fixate on the appearances of this life as being real, in fact, they are nothing but illusions.
Malam Juma Tongla Yuma Yinso Tongla Yuma Yinsa Pena Tata Sinu Jiktin Naku Simji Yigal Chasho Yela Kaza Mijik Layang Salun the Sinu Jiktin Pere Nang said the Naku Simji Pere Dri Chajana Si Sagang Gomba the Yang the Charabri, Ubo Trabion Paret, Dr. Matabish Jet. Was it Lu the young Penna, Kazajan Sona, Lu the party and Tongi Yura? May she bought the similar men that we were it. Seminar Rory, Taylor, Ludana, Ludan Bearing Himomeva, the Tin Company, Ranga 7 year old at the seminar part of each other. Mune media, Java, Mother, that's a song with Nere. You put the body ship for it.
The text continues, but in actuality, phenomena are not dreams and illusions. That is to say, all of the outer contents that are this universe, the outer container that is this universe, and the inner contents that are sentient beings, are like dreams and illusions. But if we really investigate them, we see, for example, let's just take one individual. On an outer level, the space in which that individual abides is not inherently established. It is the nature of emptiness. This earth is comprised of just many dust particles gathered together. Likewise, the body of the individual itself is similarly the nature of emptiness. The body is likewise comprised of many gathered particles, and the mind abides like the expanse of space. And so first we must investigate the nature of outer and inner phenomena in order to overthrow the habitual tendencies of fixating on phenomena as real and inherently established. So the text continues, when giving rise to disenchantment, you have insight into worldly activities, and you completely sever the connection with attachment and aversion, the domain of samsara. So if through this type of investigation that I've described, we are able to overthrow the fixation on phenomena as inherently existent, then we will turn our minds away from worldly phenomena. In general, beings hold on to that which is selfless, as though it is a real self. And this holding, or this fixation, is the cause of all of the illusory suffering of the beings of the 6 realms of existence. When you investigate well the state of worldly phenomena, and you understand that they are without inherent existence, then you have true insight into all worldly activities. When you can investigate through the power of mind in this way, then on the basis of that, some degree of freedom, or the text says you sever the connection with attachment and aversion, which are the domain of samsara. So you attain some degree of freedom within that awareness. You have the sense that the phenomena of samsara are no good, that they are the nature of suffering, and on the basis of this, you turn away from them. So, in brief, all worldly activities can be subsumed under the actions that arise from attachment and aversion. So the text is saying, when you completely sever the connection with attachment and aversion, the domain of samsara, then you should meditate alone in mountain and forest hermitages.
The chadang devada machuna seven elokta support tomba tapari pena kanidina there tomani pena ko chadangni가 당홍인 거래 엘라들이 나고서 재미있게 라서봐 딱 கொஞ்சம் 사촉 생겨 디니 들이 차당이 이런 말이 오래 차당 집안에 나타니 진이 봐 차당 대래 빼나 원래 들이 차당이도 다 손나 들이 세번 내놓는데 디 제다와 연도 용거리면 빼나 차당이 가다 마다라 빼나 가라 미적 따거나 양 디내로 사원 통틀지 말해 빼나 빼나 라그 도포지나 그래 요디 코란 통거래 양은 뭐 뒤에 뭐지 좀 코란 통거래 됐다가 세 내로가 되다 난 세문한테 차단이가 맞았나? 따와니 세고 내로 통통 말해야지.
So, if we are not able to cut through the habits of attachment and aversion, we will not clearly see the natural state of the mind. For this reason, it is necessary that we cultivate conventional bodhicitta through training in the 4 immeasurable mind states. By doing so, our attachment and aversion begin to loosen up and become purified. Thus, the dualistic tendency of separating self and other also becomes purified. On the basis of this, we begin to see the nature of mind as it is. If we have not given rise to conventional bodhicitta, it will not be possible to recognize the natural state of the mind. Because of the habits of dualistic perception and attachment and aversion, we look at friends and we see only their qualities. We look at enemies and we see only their faults. These obscuring tendencies keep us from recognition of the natural state of the mind.
Teni yina tata di nyamsa limba la lamsangi saja chimbo gomji de rangi koyo yinda nyi korte la suwang jikin koro saade pang kono te rangi pang to kamo yoreti yina ya nang semgi teni bela pang jotang si sawa ta nang semgi kaka chele si sawa ne jikin koro sawa rangi le kaan goba te tata drop go yoreti nang semgi teni 코와도 동의가람 인양자양도 성공당나 선당 코와전 대화 매와 원래 코와를 잘 되어 로제 뒤기 침몰이 장두요나 자기면나 이제 세디 나와다 라고 생이 대화 매가 차요 그래 르다마도 내가 제거나요 생부 때문에 원래 잡아는 신반 매와 영특별히 해야 돼.
So, for the practitioner who wishes to meditate on Mahamudra and who wishes to abandon worldly activities, if we really think about it, it's not easy to give up worldly activities. But we can abandon the worldly mental activities or engagement of the mind in these actions. On an outer level, we must act in accord with our karma. We must engage our body and speech in activities that accord with our karmic accumulation. But on the inner level, we can remember again and again the suffering of samsara. We can train the mind. And eventually, if we truly wish to liberate ourselves from the suffering of worldly phenomena, then although the body and speech remain in cyclic existence, the mind itself is liberated from that. It is free from that. So on an outer level, we engage the body and speech and work and various other activities, but it's possible for the mind to abide free from attachment and aversion within those activities.
Teni di nani pena gom yami che pakami teni gom da me pa ga de par chi so tu mune ke pena te gom de na saja che betora mo chi jeram dal bala ro te gom ri yo mare de sem khran ga ra chi de la ole ti thole ja ya na ti thole me pa ma to yin gom ju mare ole gom de me pa ga de par chi so 생포 라쇼리자 생고도 바탕게 다소나 생포 라시데 라시라와 돌아내요나 근데 이 검지요 말해서 빼라.
The next verse reads, when through remaining in an ongoing state of non-meditation, non-attainment is attained, Mahamudra is achieved. So if one wishes to engage in practice of meditation, if one wishes to practice Mahamudra, then all of the diverse methods of the Jhana stage and so forth are not necessary. We simply allow the mind itself to rest in its own natural state of awareness. This mind, free from obscurations, is Mahamudra. Within this, there is nothing else or nothing more to be done.
semde yene sangje yin yene ya tata mai bade sangje ge so la semji nam na sangje ni ong jang lower to me so gom go ji ba se dang gom de me ba de ba ji dini ba de ga ta te se yo re ti de ni lo ma sa ba ta be sa pa ji te sa mo ji dang da sem de je ni mo de yene sangje yin te nam to ta de ba 차소나 이 샘도 땅마 차소나 몸치바 샘 땅마도 주통을 차당이가 죄송나 샘비 내록지 바 통과 대가랑 레삼 디든 나타라면 주 뭐지 디든 몸도 매든 샘고 남도 다 차소 되니 자와 진요 말해 되니가 고고래 된다.
So again, the text says, when through remaining in an ongoing state of non-meditation, non-attainment is attained, then Mahamudra is achieved. So this is something we should think about well. It is said that the very basis of mind is the Buddha. Yet, at present, we appear as sentient beings due to temporary obscurations or adventitious defilements. So if I have the thought, I want to engage in meditation practice, is that not contradictory towards to the goal of non-meditation? We should understand that although the mind itself is the Buddha nature at the very basis, and it is the nature of purity, still, when we give rise to various conceptual thoughts and our minds become mixed up with those thoughts, then the mind is tainted by attachment and aversion. When, on the other hand, we liberate the thoughts as they arise, the mind abides in its naked, natural state. Within this, there is no other activity to be engaged. There is no other practice to be done.
사자치 뭐 냠슬이 말 태가를 랑랑 사자치 뭐 엄지지 당혼 지기 흉코를 줄을 좋아 맞지나 어랬더니 냠슬린데 매 냠슬린데 매나 되니 빼고 근데 사진 동통 특제 말 됐으나 되니 휴 무지마서 혼도사 소리 담제게 냠슬린 거 qabla 근데 이제 좀 보고 좀 꼰좁산 쪽 sem을 보지 로도 남바지 레좀데 대 하장 길치 보래 대 유를 지나더니 라초그 따져 보래 냐서는 누요 봐 라초는 로도요 봐 원래 대대도 연구요래 빼나 니들 참하게 잡고래지.
So if we wish to abide in a state of non-meditation, it's necessary that we cultivate the causes for that, that we give rise to bodhicitta and deeply consider the four thoughts that turn the mind to the Dharma. Although we may say we want to practice Mahamudra, if we cannot turn away from engagement with worldly phenomena, then we won't give rise to a deep intent to practice. For this reason, Lord Jigten Sumgun urged his disciples not to focus on the actual practice, which is the nature of mind, but rather to focus on the preliminaries. Really cultivate the preliminaries of conventional bodhicitta, the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, contemplation on karma, cause and result, and so forth, because it is on the basis of these that the authentic wish to engage in practice arises. It is on the basis of these that one wishes to go off into solitary retreats. So we should really take care and pay attention to these preliminaries.
그런데 다다 톰이 톰나 사자치 뭐 톱소 곰도 매번 니나 톱 좀 해봐서 톱용 뒤 동도 처음 더 되나 가게 되나 샘 마요나 살지 좀 마요나 당들이 샘드라미나 네고 봐대 다 강행이잖아 네 차당기다 가찰고 와대 빼나 차와던 저 해당당 맞잖아 차대 빼 차와지 차대 토천하지 아 차와당 맞잖아 차름 따와 차대 빼 차당이 소만이나 차와던 장원이야 빼는데 차와던 장원이야 차와던 장원이가 빼려와 빼는 초진 빼 차원이나 정말 특도 그래 저기는 특도 그래 오래 내서만 말해 장화이나 하장도 차고와라 차진치나 차그럼 따가 차대요 근데 세부대로 쳤다고 통통 말해 디선하더니 빼놓고 아래 차당기다 카타제데 과치고 예서 제 카타서 뭐든 저도 뭐 저도 세부대로 디나 배우나 이다 몸지로 말해서 뒤통지 싸고 고고라.
So when we abide in an ongoing state of non-meditation, then non-attainment is achieved. Now, in brief, what this means is if we focus on the nature of mind that is, in essence, clarity and lucidity, then we will naturally be free from attachment and aversion. Within that, Mahamudra will be achieved. Yet if we're not able to separate ourselves from the habits of attachment and aversion, we will not properly engage in the practice. For example, attachment and aversion are like extremes of hot and cold water. If water is extremely hot, then one cannot drink it. It will burn whatever it comes into contact with. Conversely, if water is extremely cold, it will become like ice, and one cannot consume it. It will chill whatever it comes into contact with. In a similar way, if our minds are affected by the gross heat and cold of attachment and aversion, we will not be able to see the natural state of the mind itself. Thus, it is extremely important for us to separate the pure basis of mind from the adventitious defilements of attachment and aversion. Only then can we recognize the natural state. Only then can we engage in the meditation which requires no other practice or which requires no other mode of meditation.
소만님 바탐제나 다 샤자라서 바코니 야미제 사바바요나 호도 호도라서 바쇼 마탐나 사자치 뭐냐서는 더차 찍을 주소 야미제나 레슈르트리소나 야미제 땅제 요래 강이 토마 쇼케들 담jor제 히가와 담jor제 히가와 들 삼모당네 담jor제 쪽제디 마야 랍 차지티 동대 장땅하지 지나 마물로 보여 톨라라 땅으로 삼이 디사바를 보니 되니까 답정 희가 와라 쌍고를 해도 좋겠다.
So for those senior students who have had the fortune of engaging in practice and doing the 100-day retreat and so forth, this is of great benefit. But for those who cannot do the ngundro or do the 100-day retreat in this way, still you should focus on cultivating a mind of retreat for a period of 1 week. In the morning times, you should deeply contemplate how difficult this human form is to attain, how rare and precious it is to have a human body endowed with the 18 leisures and endowments. Having contemplated this well, one will engender a resolve not to waste this precious human birth.
Tēnā tamjō chōbjē dīmē mīrū mōchē dā tōp nā pētā yu lōng māngbō rī sōng rī mīrū mōchē tōp nā kārī yōng gō rī dī sāñī chāwā matā pā rī chāwā kāmi sāñchō kā sēng kō nōbi chī lōng gō rī sī mīrū tōng dī jīng rō kō nā sāñchō kā sēng chī rā kā kūchī yō gō rī sī pōlō jīwē jāsī yō chāng chū lō kāng tōp jī mā rī dī sēng jī tēng lā tēnī yuñ tī kā sāñchō sēm chōgō tē kūrjī yō rē dūrī kī nyū mō pā chōgō tē kūrī ndō gō rē sēm kū tēnī tēnī sāñchō sēm rō tē nō wē chē tōp gō dō sām nī tī nē nā tē sām nō tāng tēnī.
Now, having achieved this difficult to attain human form possessed of the 18 leisures and endowments, we should understand that even this body will be lost at the time of death. The only thing that we will carry forward with us into the intermediate state and our next rebirth are the qualities of the mind itself. If we give rise to loving kindness, compassion, and precious bodhicitta, this will be like a jewel that we can carry with us beyond this life. But even someone who has the power of a Chakravartin king, that is to say, a wheel-turning king, can take nothing with him but the qualities of the mind at the time of death. Likewise, if we have a great accumulation of negative emotions, those propensities will be carried forward with us into the intermediate state. Understanding this, then, we should engender a resolve to obtain the jewel of loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta.
Melinde droga pere droga 강한 도를 잠송 호반데 잠송을 pere melinde droga pere 산초가 세우는 보체 노르가 pere 낭나모 droga 나나 손에 잡히는 노를 렘바레 되는 물을 보체들라 노를 말로나 되는 tradition에 까보레 노를 강리 되는 토마를 되더니 상행제레 concept 산초가 세우는 보체 유리 제보도 대체는 되게 도담 산초도 대마 통거래서 concept 산초 생각 토말건.
So there are examples that are traditionally given for the body and the bodhicitta and so forth. It is said that this human body is like a boat, and all of cyclic existence is like a vast ocean. And this boat can carry us across the vast ocean to a jewel island. The jewel is bodhicitta itself. So this human form, which is very rare and difficult to attain, has the capacity of bringing us to the jeweled island where we can obtain this mind of enlightenment or bodhicitta. So first and foremost, we should cultivate loving kindness and compassion and give rise to precious conventional bodhicitta, for it is on the basis of this that ultimate bodhicitta is realized. So in the beginning, we should really cultivate this basis of conventional bodhicitta, this jewel that will enable us to attain the ultimate fruition.
Teni gom shibada sakshindang dokchi omala soba tong samchi chol nyamsani bala dina saji chomdi de kaganani shene dang sangtong ret shene sangtong ya ret dina maduri tawa ya mare shene dina kagre dina rang sembe chadang to patanje shene sin rang la neong na teni sembe nalo jiba te rango rang shine slappa den tong. Ole.
Oh,
Mama Toma. The Chadang Topa the Shesona. There is same go Ranki, the Chotamon, the Dama Chawa. There is the same Rango Rangashi, Tong Dere, or Mumma Tong was Lapper, then Tong, Mumma Tong was a penna. Not Rango Ranga Tongo Marva. Chadang Topa Dirty or that then is same Chadang Yashasona. There is Rango was a Rango Tong, oh. Tang Harma Tong was that Lapper Tong, Bella, Sang Tong dinner. See with the Lugi, but they put the Tong and do your later Sang Tong dinner.
So, when we engage in meditation, whether we call this Mahamudra or Dzogchen or the middle way that is Madhyamika, we should understand that all of these are subsumed within the two practices of calm abiding and special insight, known in Sanskrit as shamatha and vipassana. There's no mode of meditation that is not included within these two. So with regard to shamatha, or calm abiding, when all of the thoughts based on attachment and aversion have become pacified through the practice of calm abiding, then one experiences special insight or vipassana. That is to say, one sees one's own face with clarity. That insight of what has not been seen before, or that insight into that which has not been seen before, is special insight. Ordinarily, we can't see our own face. This is because of the obscurations of attachment and aversion. But when the thoughts that come from attachment and aversion are pacified, we give rise to this clear insight. And then we see what we had not recognized before. In this way, the essence that is mind itself is recognized through the practices of calm abiding and special insight. There's nothing of the mind practices that are not included within these two.
사자 전부 동네 톱을 강해 버려. 나그 생고 내록들 하고는 내용 생도 낙가대 집발에. 다당 우소디 범바는 그 동이 다와 냐바 다디들 때에 생도 고 범바는 그 동반이 다we나. 생도 내록을 하고 야는 저바탕 재미 좀 생도 낙가 예 매봐. 낭랑 그 생도 선낙가 예 매봐더니 자치 뭐 낙회 같으로 생고 찹대 받더니 토운 거래. Detail mention 사자 좀 톱지 톱 저처럼 톱지 말이 이 톱미 톱로 사자 치고 톱지 랑들을 랑으로 배는 세분의 록들어 살와 동바들이 나갔다 자치 보지 통주요래 되더라 이거 톱지를 저랑 톱을 좀 내봐 너네 톱지 유점 어디 동거래 되라 톱미 톱나 사자 치고 톱소
So when we abide in a state of non-meditation, then within that it is possible to recognize the nature of mind. If we have the thought, oh, I'm meditating on Mahamudra or Dzogchen, we're really only talking about the label, Mahamudra and Dzogchen. We're not talking about the direct experience. If we have this kind of fixation in the mind, it will be difficult to engage the actual experience of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. Thus, the text refers to remaining in an ongoing state of non-meditation, and on the basis of that, attaining non-attainment. This then refers to the actual experience of Mahamudra. If we can abide in the natural state, then we recognize the inseparable nature of all phenomena. For example, we should think of the body as kind of a vase. If it's an empty vase, then there's empty space inside. And then outside, there's also empty space. Yet still, there's this dualistic perception, this separation between outside and inside. If we abide in a state of non-meditation, it is as though the vase is broken, and the inner space and the outer space merge and mingle into one. Thus we recognize the mind to be vast and all-pervasive. The mind isn't based on any kind of material structure. Not even the finest particle can be identified as mind. Thus, the mind is nothing but clear, empty awareness that is vast, like the expanse of the empty sky. In this way, then, when we abide in a state of non-meditation, when we abandon the act of meditating, then it is possible for non-attainment to be attained. It is possible for Mahamudra to be recognized.
샘 동반이는 남도 동반이가 샘그 샘들이 덕배 남바다더니 친구요 그래지 대화근 친구요 동해근 친구요 강는 빼놓고 대화를 차는 친구요 그래 동해 당는 친구요 그래 샘그 내로부터 또 손나 이제바는 남도 탐지 빼놓고 샘그랑시 동반이 봐또 손나 근데 동해를 탈로요 그래지 뜻이 되니 어래 The
text continues, these worldly phenomena are the useless causes of suffering. Look at the ultimate essential meaning that realizes the futility of conditioned phenomena. So, what is the benefit when non-attainment is attained? What is the benefit when we practice Mahamudra? The benefit is liberation from suffering. All phenomena of samsara are the nature of suffering. How is this so? When we give rise to thoughts, and then we fixate on them as immediately we have attachment towards those experiences and thoughts that are pleasurable, and aversion for those that are not. This attachment and aversion binds us. So we're bound by the attachment to bliss and the aversion to suffering. Lies the natural state of the mind. Then all of those bonds are loosened. We see the empty nature of all phenomena. We see how meaningless worldly phenomena are. Thus the text says to look at the ultimate essential meaning that realizes the futility of conditioned phenomena.
So Luga be told that I'm going to lose the trouble, getting it to the or around a lake can't go to this out the drug go, you're the non same than a bella. 동의티 가까래지.
When we speak of suffering, it is of two types. There are outer sufferings of the body and speech and inner mental sufferings. With regard to the latter, this is really conditioned by hope or expectation on the one side and doubt on the other. With regard to the sufferings of body and speech, we engage in many activities to accomplish worldly benefit. Whether or not those activities will bear fruit is dependent on the actions of the past. So whether or not they're accomplished really depends on karma. In this way, then, we can separate the mental sufferings that are experienced from the sufferings that arise through body and speech, for example, when our hopes and our wishes are not achieved.
별나 다다지 진 코버 사와 탐시라더니 레도 되게 동의적으로 요래 강리디나 참에 내가 안 되고 그 요래 내가 뒤도는 몇 조를 남면 팀밤에 내가 충충되게 통나 동의 망보스 주네 대체를 요래 돼 제일 세준님 보면 하지 강님 보면은 내가 다 동의니 돼 상가 흥지 레게 ngama chibje tate lula tu samaka je tate lela tu so le jimje to chibore ma to rangam be tsung ta redo la mati bare se chu ni bo me ko ton tam ni por tu so wa de la se pa chu ni bo me wa de na ndire rang le zo re ma to rang be tsung ta redo la wang cha yo ma le ra wang yo ma le
So again, the verse reads, "These worldly phenomena are the useless causes of suffering. Look at the ultimate essential meaning that realizes the futility of conditioned phenomena." So, all of the worldly activities that we engage in do not need to be the causes of suffering. We only experience suffering on the basis of these when we give rise to hope that the activities, or the expectation that the activities should be accomplished, or doubt that they will not. All sentient beings without exception want happiness and pleasure, and day and night they engage in countless difficulties for even the smallest experiences of pleasure. When we see how meaningless all of those activities are, then we become free of hope and expectation that they'll be accomplished, and free from fear that they will not. Then we see the central importance of the workings of karma, cause and effect. If our wishes and hopes are accomplished, that will be determined by the karmic ripening of the actions of former lives. If they are not, likewise, it will be determined by karma. Thus, we can let go of the expectation and the doubt, understanding that to some degree within the understanding of karma, cause and effect, we don't have a great deal of choice.
이 때나 되니 돈담 행보도 소나 되니 랑게 대동령 담지 이왕기 바텔 레도요 말에 지나 권초 가든 레제 동나 문제래 와래 되나 문제 랭이 바세 그요래 사나 동이 담지 대발라 고파 야 되니 랑게 생분 내로 때나 대동요 남도래 남도도 뭐 동반이래 되니 랑게 생분 내로다 네 네바메와 남도 네바메와 이런 거래 생분 내로 때나 야되나 어래 되니 동이 더 요래
So again, look at the ultimate essential meaning that realizes the futility of conditioned phenomena. When we abide in the ultimate natural state, then all of our hopes and expectations and our doubts are pacified, abiding in this state that is free from the extremes of hope and fear, then there is nothing more to do than continually look at the ultimate essential meaning. Within this, we recognize that both happiness and suffering are simply thoughts. They're simply mental phenomena. Both need to be liberated. When we abide in awareness, happiness and suffering, attachment and aversion are spontaneously rendered powerless. They have no capacity to harm our minds. In this way, we experience liberation from suffering. Do we need to take a break? Then please, let's take a short break.
Thank you. Okay. 다 세주 님보 미베 동다 님보 쯔송 동다 님보 따나 다 가르다 거래 되는 변나 다다 와서 이제 체되게 사와서로 싸모만 뭐지 땅거는 대치는데 요건 대치는데 요거 남도 유마치 봐 요래 남도 대다가 빼나 세pe치는 이제 뒤에 감데 제가 코를 사와서 이제 제는데 근본들이지 내와요 말이 동에게 저래 나 가능 싸움을 못하면 샘콩으로 내록되는 쳤다 랑가 샘그 차사가 차리지 상그 샘 누군 내록 내로 샘 쳤대나 연락할 맞에 샘을 쳤대나 돈 다 받지 랑가 샘그 내록 내 걸로 때는 민소 잡았지 야보여 그랬지 강의잖아 띠모 랑가 샘을 따지 말아래 배 띠모 랑가 샘을 따 수이 연락 띠모 따지 요 말이지 랑가 샘을 띠모 때는 가슈 되래서 말아래
So again, the text says, look at the ultimate essential meaning that realizes the futility of conditioned phenomena. So what is it that we're to look at? Having investigated the futility of worldly activities, understanding that we engage in one thought after the next in an unbroken stream, we should experientially recognize these to be a cause of suffering. In this way, mental engagement in worldly activities is nothing but a cause of suffering. It brings no happiness at all. Thus, we should abide in the ultimate natural state, not focusing on the various thoughts that arise in the mind. We should not focus on outer objects, but rather focus on the inner mind itself and rest within that. In this regard, Milarepa said that the mind itself is the greatest entertainment. Entertainment.
강례 샘을 맨찰 담아는 차기 요래 제 샤웨 지선다는 코를 사와래 단 콘도 요래 대치는 남도 로거주 두만다 오래 야야는 남도 색깔 최초는 미로래 기념용대 남도 매송 샘 남도다 저 샘대 돈 답에 내가 대하라는 레죠.
So when we follow after the thoughts that arise in the mind, this is the basis of suffering. These chains of thoughts that arise one after the next are like the beads on a mala, on a rosary. If, on the other hand, we do not follow after the thoughts that arise, they appear and then they immediately dissipate like bubbles appearing and bursting on the surface of the water. When we abide in this mind that is free from fixation on arising thought, that is the ultimate truth itself. Right. By means of your intellectual faculties, look at the ultimate essential meaning. You won't see the truth transcending intellect by means of the intellect. And so we should understand that all worldly activities, all outer phenomena are created by the mind itself. When we abide in the mind that is free from thought, then we really look into the nature of all phenomena. Scholars and scientists and so forth, no matter how much they may investigate the truth by means of intellectual faculties, it will not be known by those means. The text reads, you won't see the truth transcending intellect by means of the intellect. Study the point of non-action by means of conditioned phenomena. If you want to attain non-action transcending thought, sever the root of mind itself and rest in naked awareness. So Rinpoche has spoken about non-action transcending thought. When we are completely free of fixation on arising conceptual thoughts, then we can recognize non-action, not engaging in any activity, not even having the inclination to engage in activity. The mind abides like the expanse of space. If we wish to realize the nature of mind, then we should practice in this way.
남도 탐지 창키 심키 라가 남도 강샤 제 무였다 된 통키를 봤대 그렇게 오르쇼 라가 샘고 쳤다와지네 샘들 간리도 되나 심키를 킹게 총키 시바전도 심키를 봐 대가랑 종네 띵고라 되네 그렇게 오르쇼 때 조금 정도지.
The text says, sever the root of mind itself, and rest in naked awareness. If we are observing the mind itself, we will recognize the thoughts that arise, the recognizer of the thought, the aware quality of the mind is what we are cultivating in this practice. When a thought arises, if we look at the face of that thought, the thought itself is liberated. In this way, we look at the mind with the mind, and we sever the root of mind itself, as it says in the text. Apart from this awareness, nothing else needs to be cultivated. We simply focus on that self-awareness alone.
다 릭바 제르쇼 지와 니 동들 저쪽에 책대 다들 마주네 내가 그런 게 sem도 쳤듯 문에 저도 냠서지 용거리다 강용들아 그런 게 sem도 적지도 남도 망보진 통그래 남도 망보진 통은 통주가 남도 이제 파마라와 통큰 심큰 남도 통큰이 시바 큰 거래 적대나 되는 화다고 차는 그렇고 대체 제르쇼거든 되게 돌로 맞는데 돌로는 르바데 남도 어디선 장나 다 돌로 좀만하게 그 르바게 돌로 좀 요래 남도 강기지선 만당데 제버르쇼데 제버르다서 돌로면 저보다 더 송배나 대치도 냠스직 용 다다라고 설명다 판 남도 어디서 만당 심기 시바팅하나 적다 냠스 용나야 보여래 까마 제기들아 이게 또 배핀도 아마
So the line reads, sever the root of mind itself and rest in naked awareness. Now when we speak about naked awareness, these are just mere words. The meaning is known only experientially. And so I would ask that you look at the mind itself. Look at the mind with the mind. And when you do so, you will see the arising of various thoughts. Simply leave them behind without following after them. The mind that knows and recognizes the thoughts itself becomes like the nature of space. This mind, free from thought, is naked. It is without the clothing of conceptual thought. If we follow after the thoughts that arise, then it is as though the mind is covered up in the clothing of thought. So now I would ask you just for a few moments to look at this naked awareness. Although thoughts may arise, do not follow after them. The recognizer or the seer of the thoughts that arise is the mind itself. And so if you're taking a lot of notes, it's of no great benefit. We have to experience it directly. So please do this for just a few moments. So if you write it all down in a book, that book isn't going to practice. You've got to do the practice.
다다라는 싸워라 아사 나그 생각에 놀 때는 남도 망보게 샤용은 남도 통크리 시바들 소송 돼요. 남도 강산의 남이를 파져잖아. 남도 추추르지는 미로요래. 대시송은 샘다 남도 역직바에 뭐 하고 그래. 초다 랍다고. 네. 남도 가송로마 알데요마 강리 송 강리 송내로 좀 돼야 시작해요. 얘는 최 랍다고 그래. 남도 야야 샘을 탐로 샘내 송 샘을 탐로래.
When we look at the nature of mind, we will see many thoughts arising. We need to leave them in their own place without following after them. If we do this, we will experientially recognize that the thoughts are like bubbles spontaneously appearing on the surface of water and then immediately dissipating. The thoughts themselves are the mind. They're not different from or separate from the mind, just as the water bubble cannot be said to be different from the water. Likewise, we speak of the waves in the ocean. They are not two, but rather of one nature. The waves arise out of the ocean, briefly abide, and then dissolve back into the ocean. So it is with all of the myriad thoughts that arise in the mind. They are not different from the mind itself. So recognizing this, just allow them to dissolve, resting in their own natural state.
Nam to chi ba jo, number mi to chi, ti dong de kan, to bu zhe ma che de tang zhe jiu song dong de na. Ni number to dang mi to, xi ba? Number to dang ma da zhe ye. Number mi to ba de na, nam to sha zhe me ba zhe xie ge ma le. Sha rong wen nam to de la, to ge ma da na ge. Ge to ma jie zhe be na. Zhe ba ma yong. Ge xie ge, number mi to ba de. 그래서 똑부터 맞춰서 당도 주거나 강차와 제가 똑똑 맞다는 데. 제가 라쇼가 당도에 빼나. 차금차 두지 말이 쇼로 봐.
Yes. So the Tibetan term that we use for thoughts is namto, and the term for non-thought is nambramitokpa. In either case, we're talking about conceptualizing or not conceptualizing. So when we speak about the non-conceptual state, we're not saying that thoughts don't arise or that thoughts are suppressed. We're saying that we abide free from fixation on the thoughts. We don't follow after the thoughts that arise. When we let go of thoughts as they arise one after the next, then the mind is not obscured by those thoughts. It is as though the mind remains like free-flowing water. Whereas on the other hand, if we fixate on the thoughts, if we follow after them, the mind becomes like a frozen block of ice.
생군 저바쇼는 센데 저만데 다 저만 요래 저거 거래 나파도 진짜로 저거는 이마 저거 거래 마지나 꼭 깨끗깨끗은 미로 요래 변나 가장 이제 진속고 좀나 마진가 왕는 방송을 강해되나 심이 나파라 나도 저바다 그래지 나파가 저바 주도 말 저바 내가 말했지 저바
With regard to the experience of the nature of mind, although many thoughts will arise, it is not necessary to fixate on them. The moment we fixate on an arising thought, the mind becomes obscured. On the other hand, if there is no fixation, the thought itself instantaneously dissipates. In this way, one thought after the next will arise, but still, one after the next is liberated. Yesterday, when we received the empowerment of the fivefold Mahamudra, we were referring to a song of Lord Jigten Sumgun. And in that song, he speaks about the mind being like the sky and the various thoughts being like clouds. But clouds will not remain in the sky. They will be cleared away. They will dissipate of their own accord. This is the mode that we should pursue as we engage the meditation.
근데 약과 탑들이 나와 가접 맵자 라설쇼 소나 가접 맵자들이 남도 마샤네 에샤마다 간샤르 마지 샬나 남도 지도 따하는 거 야잖아. 근데 남도 관리 용도도 삼삼 남도 메르센 남과다고 깨끗라더니 they look Jima, Tongore, now I got up with a Rasako, so the net Chibore.
And the text continues, leave the polluted water of conceptual thoughts in its natural clarity. Without establishing or refuting appearances, leave them as they are. So the method for liberating thoughts is to simply leave them in their own natural state. Of course they will arise, but if we are free from fixation to their arising and free from fixation to non-arising, and we just leave the mind in its natural state, we'll find that the thoughts will become fewer and fewer. And then sometimes we will be completely free from thought, abiding in the naked natural state of the mind. This is a very important, essential point.
The Junda Julamda, Gomjaji, there's a chair, Junda Julam going to give him something, Gom, Numoba, Gargo. Something you drop over it. Sajachibo Gogos coming, gave a top of mother, gave a top of Maga, Numo was a chief of Korasana, Payachagore. They bought a music in a Rasana Yachana, Yam the maid or the Tinam.
So here there's a distinction to be made between our ordinary daily activities and what we're practicing in meditation. Because when we engage in conduct, it's necessary that we practice virtue, that we cultivate loving kindness and compassion, and put an end to negative emotions or transform negative emotions. On the other hand, when we're engaged in the practice of mind, we should not stop the arising of non-virtuous thoughts, nor should we cultivate virtuous thoughts. Both of them should simply be left in their own natural state. Likewise, with virtues such as faith and devotion, in the context of meditating on the nature of mind, both virtuous thoughts such as devotion and faith and non-virtuous ones such as negative emotions are equal. They should equally be left behind.
Zangi me ba tapji ra shok chakrom cho shwa je de thor de sem de dje me ba yong je de sa ja chi mo sem de dje me ba thor de dje ta me de dje o ma ba ne ba me na pang go na yang ke da pang go sa yang de go ro ba o de gi wa de go sa yang de go ro ba de nya re do ro ba de nya mi ta pang mu go lang mu go be pam lang nya me pha yo ja de dje ka yo ma sem.
The text continues, when there is neither acceptance nor rejection, one is liberated into the state of Mahamudra. And so abiding in the awareness that is the nature of mind itself, we abide in the natural state where there is neither good nor bad. We're free from the obscuring factors of abandoning non-virtue and accepting or practicing virtue. If we really look at acceptance and rejection, or what is to be adopted and what is to be abandoned, these dualistic views are based on hope and fear. And so in this meditation, which transcends dualistic extremes, we should leave the mind in its natural state.
Kapa Tombu Sapa Mambaya, Rumi Jigger, Mamatron, Serres, Betty Jibari, Tonjiba.
And so here some examples are given in the text. It reads, for example, if the root of a tree with flourishing branches and foliage is cut, its 10,000 branches and 100,000 leaves wither. For example, a single flame clears away even the accumulated darkness of 1,000 eons. Similarly, in an instant of the luminosity of mind itself, all the negativity and obscuration that have been accumulated throughout eons are dispelled.
Sanji Jobdin Chundavando, Chudipo Jetting song, they knew what Jetting, really Jetting, tell me about take a child already. Later, Bobacabate, the Roma Tamchiga, one more than Kappa, this is all it. Don't was Hajachi, don't tongue from her. Tata, Maripatak, on the tire, and the same with the long tongue from her. How much you don't tongue with the Kiki Conrosin and the girl.
So the Buddha, the transcendent conqueror, taught the 84,000 aggregates of the Dharma as a means to address each of the 84,000 different kinds of negative emotions. These teachings were given for the benefit of his disciples who were beginners. Yet, when we look at the actual meaning, when we engage the actual practice of Mahamudra, or the natural state of the mind, we should understand that all of these modes are not applicable in that context. It is said that knowing one liberates all. That is to say, when we engage in this practice of the natural state of the mind, all of the myriad negative emotions and so forth are spontaneously liberated.
The page, woman, the water was song, Ganges dinner, the Satoga, Tajik, and the air, Tajik caught on by Vashina. You think it not talking to caught on by somebody in the Bashir, Betty, that the Lanka second number, taking his own, they told on her, number, somewhat on one by she's on it. It is your answer.
And so, Arya Nagarjuna taught within the context of the Madhyamika that when the root of a tree, when we recognize the root that is emptiness, the single root that is emptiness, then we understand that all of the branches and the flowers and fruits and leaves and so forth, all the myriad branches and so forth, are also the nature of emptiness. In a similar way, when we can liberate a single thought, a single arising thought, then we have direct experience of the meaning. And on the basis of this, we're able to understand how any other conceptual arising can be liberated in the same way.
Didn't it that Sama can answer no theatre mommy? Not to check Muson of Pena, not to check Muson, the garden by Yana. The need Penako, singing hours, Patamdo, Church or Toronto, with him towards it. Dina knows the charlatan. Namto Chipta Tamki, and Namto Chu, for not teach over in the Bible. You know, she's in Georgia theory. Now, Sharon, you know what Tilla? Several part of this in it, Korasa, Teleshituna. You see the you want she was teaching there. You boy Sheila, Tumble, Pero, you boy Shintower. She loved the Metaver, Shin the manager, and you move she in Jersey.
So as we actually engage in this practice of meditation, we will recognize the arising of a single thought. And in that arising, without accepting or rejecting, we should just leave the thought in its own natural state. And we will see that the thought itself dissolves back into the mind, which is its source. In this way, the thoughts are liberated on arising. When we speak about the transformation of negative emotions into wisdom, this is what we're talking about. Although negative emotions and various thoughts will arise, if through the power of awareness we recognize their arising, then they are immediately consumed by and transformed into awareness itself. So conceptual thoughts are like wood, they're like fuel, and transcendent awareness is like a flame. Whenever we apply transcendent awareness to arising thoughts, they are immediately transformed as fuel is transformed by the flame.
This concludes CD number 2 of Ganges Mahamudra Practice Instruction with His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche.